Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of those people, thanks so much for coming back. But for everyone out there who's new to the show, welcome. Feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer and soda in the fridge. Cheers. Give me a fucking water.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm going to calm things down. A little out of control. But I am sitting here today with how many people are in your band? How many mere mortals are here right now? I have one mere mortal here.
Yeah.
So, fuck it. Bonnie and the mere mortals. Make some noise for the internet.
There's 5 of us in all, if you count me.
What the fuck's up? How you doing?
We're doing great. I mean, this year's been a whole ride, but we're doing our best to keep going with the flow and keep up with the current. And we've had some good things happen. I mean, this is happening right now, which is great. We love this.
Fantastic. So, before we get lost in the sauce, which is inevitable because I'm really good at just taking a conversation and just off the rails.
Down.
Let's talk about this new fucking music video and tell me a bit about the band. Tell me a bit about the music video, and then we can talk about Beanie Babies or whatever else you would like to.
Sure. I'll try to be, concise.
Tight.
I'll do my best. But Bonnie and the Mere Mortals, we mix Southern and Gothic together. So we have Southern Americana aspects to our stuff, and we have Gothic, goth rock kind of aspects to our stuff. And we put those two things together. We have one EP that we put out, I think it's over a year ago now, which is pretty wild to me. But COVID time doesn't exist. And then we've been working on our new full-length album for a bit now. And this is our first single that we're putting out from that. So in this new landscape, we thought that it would be best to put out a video. We want to do something that is meaningful for our fans and meaningful for us and something that we felt great about. And one of our members is immunocompromised and things are a little weird right now. So we thought if we can't have everybody in the video, we should have nobody in the video.
Okay.
So from there, I sat there and thought about, and we all talked about, well, how, if none of us are in it, how are we going to show who we are without showing who we are? So naturally, I hired a drag queen and we went from there. And I'm really excited about the results. I've made several music videos in the past before, but I've never been more proud than I am of this one. And Scarlett Fairweather is just a peach. I just love her.
So yeah, the track is called Curses. It's over here. It's on youtube.com, the website. I would click on this, but for some reason, my internet is being a son of a bitch right now. But if you're watching this, chances are you have a Facebook account and you could find Bonnie and the Mere Mortals on Facebook right here. Their page looks like this. You're looking at it and just scroll on down and click that thing that says Curses and listen to the goddamn song.
Yeah, please listen to it.
The internet is a pain in the ass, and getting people to pay attention to anything these days is really, really hard.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, are you kidding?
There's a whole lot. It's hard to cut through the noise, and I'm sure it's at least hard for me just being bombarded with so much media all the time. But that being said, go watch my video.
Yes.
And listen to us on Spotify.
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
Look them up on Spotify and all of those places, please.
Yeah.
So I have seen y'all play before. As you mentioned before we started recording, we have a lot of mutual friends.
Right.
We've been around for a while. You know how it goes. We're trying to do this music thing still. Promoting music is crazy, but just in general, doing music is crazy. The fact that we're even trying to do this in the chaos of everything else that's going on right now, what the fuck is wrong with us? So, Bonnie, first question. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I have horrible anxiety that is only alleviated by creating things. We have our own show that we've been doing for a while through quarantine called the Pittsburgh Creative Collective. yeah, I want to do a bunch of nice altruistic things for the community for sure. I would love to meet some other artists in the community, but mostly if I'm not working all of the time, I will go insane.
Totally.
I need it. I will, if I don't have a job, if I'm not able to work, I was out of, I do tattoos and I couldn't do that for 3 months. I just gave myself other occupations. Like I have to. That's it.
Yep.
I think Dustin's pretty much the same way.
Yeah, I'm like the most obsessive producer person you'll ever meet, and if I'm not figuring out
I can vouch for that.
Drum samples and effect chains and stuff, I am just not human.
Totally. So how is sleep for the two of you, getting to sleep at night? I have a hard time getting to sleep at night because I'm just thinking constantly.
I'm the queen of sleep.
Nice.
But I also work while I'm sleeping. Like I'll have a new song in my head that's in a dream, and I'll wake myself up to record like voice messages on my phone being like, and the next part's like,
and I'm the one who interprets those and makes it into a song.
Yes. So I'll come into the studio a couple of days later and be like, hold on, don't listen to this. Like, and try to explain that to him. But like, even when I'm asleep, I'm trying to figure things out, but I love sleeping. If I could have been asleep this whole year, I would have done it.
Cool. I hate sleep, but let's get positive. You two seem to have a positive working relationship together. How'd you two find each other in this crazy mixed up world?
Yeah, Craigslist.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. How long ago was that?
A little over 2 years ago,
Really?
I think.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know what time is, but yeah.
Yeah, I was just on Craigslist late one night, just thinking like, is there anything out there that isn't just the same old shit on Craigslist that you see all the time? And I saw Southern Gothic Project looking for members. And the weird thing is I had the idea for a Southern Gothic band years and years ago. And, I thought nothing of it. I thought, oh, who's going to be interested in that?
Sure.
And the artists that she's referencing are exactly the artists that I had been thinking about. And I listened to her demos and was like, yeah, of course, I have to see what this is about.
That's super, super awesome. So, Dustin, what's your background in terms of music production? Like prior to meeting up with Bonnie and doing the Southern Gothic rock stuff, you mentioned producing and drum samples and all this stuff. Like, give me the Cliff's Notes on your musical background.
So I've played in a lot of bands. I started out as a drummer, and my dad was a musician, so I always had access to a home studio growing up. And so I just eventually started writing my own songs and wanting to record them. And then with all the bands that I would play in, my place would sort of be the demo studio, the rehearsal studio by default. And so I just got more and more into it over time. And like, for me, I've always wanted to do every aspect of the music I listen to. I don't just want to be a songwriter or a guitar player. I want to learn how to make every sound that I'm hearing on the music I love.
Gotcha. And then Bonnie, you were playing in bands before this as well. I'm pretty sure that my old bands have played with your old bands at one point in time or another.
Yeah, we'll have to go through that history later.
Tis Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So what was the journey for you just getting into, picking up an instrument and starting to play music?
I mean, I've been playing music my whole life. I started out on piano. My piano teacher was I don't know what the term you're supposed to use now is, little person, a man with dwarfism.
Okay.
And I played that when I was like really young, and I always joke to people that like he couldn't reach the pedals, so I never learned to use them.
My immediate question, not to get off track, but like, did you like play on a different scale piano, or were they able to play on like a full scale piano?
Oh, full scale piano.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that and eventually I moved from that, went to guitar. I've sang as long as I can remember. I'm like a lot of folks from the backwoods that I started singing and playing music in church. But I think I had my first musical project in like middle school or something, doing like Blink-182 covers for spaghetti dinners. And I've always been interested in the songwriting aspect of things. I see myself as more of like a composer than anything else, but it always comes back to the songwriting for me. But I also love putting on a crazy show. I like creating a character and just having fun on stage. I mean, songwriting's definitely number one, but love having big hair and yelling at people from a stage. Who gets to do that? It's the best thing in the world. You know?
Hell yeah. I know, outside of the music thing, you also do art. You're doing tattoos. You mentioned it just a little bit ago. So was music or art, what came first?
To me, they're like two crumbs of the same cookie.
Okay, cool.
Like it's just a different, it's all the same ideas. It's just how you choose to express those ideas, whether it's going to be music or visual art or dance or writing or whatever. Like they're just, to me, it's the difference between, am I painting with oils or am I painting with acrylics? The techniques are different, but it's all just expression,
Now, Dustin, do you have anything that you do outside of music that may be like art related or creative, or are you mostly focused on production?
Music's pretty much taken over my entire life. I teach music. I run sound at a church. I play in another band, and I also have a solo project. So yeah, music has always been kind of the lens that I experience all art through. Like I have an interest in art. I took a lot of art history classes and some graphic design courses in college and stuff like that. But I was never like good enough at any of those things to warrant spending the kind of time on it that I do with music.
Gotcha. Now, when it comes to Bonnie and the Mere Mortals and the music that y'all make, I think that it's very apparent that this is coming from the place of like people that love a lot of different music, which I think is really cool about it, because it's pulling these influences from a lot of weird niches that you normally don't hear put together. But as you had mentioned before, like, this makes sense. Why aren't more people doing this?
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you think that.
So, what was the idea, I guess, since my assumption, since you found the Craigslist ad, Bonnie, was this something that you had put out onto Craigslist looking for people? So you had this idea for this project?
Yeah. So I made maybe about 5 demos on my own. I learned to get good enough at recording to make some, okay demos to get the idea out there. And to me, like I want to make something that's very accessible to a lot of people, but that is still true to what I love doing and to my influences. Like, I don't think that you have to get like super subculture in order to have an interesting idea. Like anyone who knows me knows how much I love David Bowie. And I think that rather than having like a giant box of things that he used and maybe just brushing the surface in 3.5 minutes of that box of creativity, what I feel like he did was use a very tiny box of things. He constrained himself within like pop music, but he used every inch of that box and did a lot of really interesting things. So that's what I'm inspired by, to take, like, I really love Americana and murder ballads and these gritty stories, but I also really love Susie and the Banshees and The Cure and all of these washy tones and sort of the poppiness of their melodies and bass lines and stuff like that. And to me, it makes sense that they go together. I hear stuff like that already, but I wanted to do something like that is, yeah, it's weird, and hopefully people hear all of these different influences and stuff, but I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted it to be something that maybe you have to listen to 4 or 5 times to be like, oh, I didn't pick that up before, but that's definitely, that drum machine sounds a little Depeche Mode or something.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the question we're always asking in the studio is like, what does this song want to be?
Yeah.
Because we always write the song first. Usually Bonnie will come in with an idea. Sometimes she'll just have lyrics and then I'll put chords to it. But like, we always kind of start with the song, and then anything that the song might be suggesting, we'll just go and pull different pieces and parts from our collective pantheon of influences. But we always try not to like fall down a rabbit hole of just sheer aesthetic appreciation for like one specific thing. We kind of want to tie it all back to does this serve the song?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that there's a really interesting thing with, like, we'll just call it like dark alternative music, is like a very blanket genre, right? Where a lot of people that are into this type of music, I think we feel like, we're too good for pop music. But at the same time,
It is pop music.
it is pop
Yeah.
music. And, so many of the artists that you had mentioned, like, it doesn't seem like that was lost on you. It seemed like, you're more than willing to embrace, like, I loved pop music of the 80s. The Cure was pop.
Yeah.
Susie and the Banshees was pop.
Right.
We can look at this stuff now as like, oh, this was alternative and weird and different. It really wasn't.
They play it at Michael's on their main.
Yeah.
You can hear it
Sure.
at Walmart.
And it's so funny because there's a lot of people, I think, that get into doing this stuff in more modern times that they neglect that. And then their music suffers for it because they're trying to be so different and so weird.
Mhm.
And it's like, you're missing the whole point.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think that being weird for being weird's sake isn't useful. And I've one of the things in switching from doing, because I did metal before this and now I do this, but in switching to that and thinking about like what kind of music I'd like to make, I thought about really everyone I know that you talk to music about, and you talk to them about their favorite songs of all time or the things that really stick with them. And a lot of times it is pop music. Even if someone's really into super heavy bands, and they say, oh, one of my favorite songs of all time is this new Fit for an Autopsy song. Like, yeah, I love Fit for an Autopsy. That's great. But like if Fleetwood Mac or Hall & Oates or The Cure or something comes on, if Michael Jackson comes on, you're singing to it,
Sure.
Mhm.
But you can't act like you're too good for popular music,
Mm-hmm. The funny thing about jumping from metal to doing something like this, because I play in a metal band as well, but I
Mhm.
also have my more accessible things, and I think that my reasoning for not being able to do metal all the time is I think it's just like it's like exhausting for me. And I feel like it's exhausting for other people. Music is like a conversation between you and other people, like you and the listener, I suppose.
Right.
And I don't know, like, personally, if I want to be around somebody that like only wants to listen to metal all the time. I don't know if that's like a conversation I want to have.
Well, I think
like,
there's
it's a
just
strange thing.
music for different experiences. Like I love old school punk, but I wouldn't, I don't drive down the road just listening to that all the time. Like there's music you listen to in your car, and then there's albums that you put on when you just want to experience that for what it is. And so, yeah.
Well, I don't think anyone's truly like that. I used to work with this like super tough guy, big beard, basketball shorts all year rounds, like beat down guy. And we would listen to the Cranberries together and just have like the most like wonderful little conversations. Like we'd be listening to stuff like Bane and then, put on the Cranberries, and he loves it,
Yeah, I think that there's, another thing too, and maybe this is just me speaking, but maybe you can relate with this. I feel like, as I've gotten older, because I'm not getting any younger, I start to find that like a lot of the music that I love, like, metal and hardcore and old school punk, there's something that's like unquestionably adolescent about it. And like, if I want to continue to make music like that, like, how do I do it, but like still feel like not like a young kid?
You have
Because
to make
like,
doom metal.
Yeah.
That's what
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get older and then you play doom metal.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it because I like that youthful energy.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not that angry anymore.
Yeah.
And also like that, like there's a big part of that, that world that, I mean, like, you might know what I'm talking about just from like being not only in the music world, but in the tattoo world, where there's just like these worlds attract people that never want to grow up, which is like kind of cool, but it's also kind of annoying at times.
Yeah. Subculture and youth culture.
Yeah.
Very-
It's like, it's such a weird thing.
yeah.
And like being a
intertwined.
part of it. And I could, imagine like maybe if I was in your position, I'd be like, I would love to contribute to something that's maybe just outside of this, just so I could feel like I'm contributing something that's worth a little bit, like that has a little bit more like, I don't know how to put this without sounding like a turd, but like something that just has a little bit more like merit and value, like long-term value.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of like metal that feels like so temporary, or hardcore that feels so temporary. Like,
It has a date on it
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
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 I really enjoy with our stuff with again with my old band, we would look on our like Spotify whatever stuff, and it'd be mostly teenagers. And I love playing shows for teenagers because they get their parents' money and they get really excited when they come to shows and they want you to like sign their shoes and stuff like that. And I love that. It's wonderful. But with this project, I think Spotify tells us that most of our fans are between like 25 and 41. And there's something about that that just makes me feel good. You
I
know,
feel like
it's
it's nice
more mature.
It's nice to feel like you're like making music for like people in your demographic, because there is something that is kind of weird, like, you know, playing in punk bands and being like, everybody in this room is 15, 20 years younger than me. And like, that's okay. But it could be weird on like a DIY level. You know what I mean? Like if you're still playing house shows and like you're in a basement and there's just a bunch of underage kids drinking and you're in your 30s and it's kind of like, why the fuck am I here?
It's taxing. It's a lot. And you know what? When you don't play metal, you have smaller amplifiers. And your back feels better.
Yeah, sure.
You don't have to carry a full stack into the altar bar's closed. What's open? Into a venue.
Smiling Moose.
Go up the Smiling Moose's broken step.
Yeah.
You know? It's nice to not have your ears ringing all the time and to play to people who aren't teenagers.
Yeah, we only have so much hearing left.
Yeah, me especially.
So on the other side of things, outside of the creative aspects of Bonnie and the Mere Mortals, we have mentioned Spotify demographics.
Yeah.
Let's talk business. How are the two of you holding up on the business end of things in 2020? Social media marketing, promoting, all of those things. How do you feel about the state of things?
I think that new problems often call for creative solutions. And while this is a time when a lot of people are just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, I'm a bit more of an optimist, and I would like to think that there's opportunity there because, I mean, ever since Lars got angry, the music industry has been in an uproar, and no real new gatekeepers have been put in place. There's no real rules right now, and now we're sort of like almost in the Wild West of the music industry. But you can look at that as, you know, there's chaos, but you can also look at it as, you know, there's opportunity. And I'm sure if we keep going with the Wild West metaphor, you know, because we're Southern Gothic, there's, you know, some rich white guys that are coming and being like, I'm building a railroad or whatever. But also some of America's first millionaires were prostitutes who just figured stuff out. So I want to be like those prostitutes.
Yeah, I kind of think what happens right now sort of happens every 10 years in the music industry where everything gets shaken up and no one knows what's going on anymore. And then whoever is able to master that and figure it out is going to rule the industry for the next 10 years. And so I think we're sort of at a stage where we're trying to figure out, like, how do we do live music? How do we connect with audiences and do something that isn't just another Facebook invite that people ignore? And so, like with Pittsburgh Creative Collective, it's really been amazing how we've managed to meet a lot of people in the Pittsburgh area who we usually wouldn't meet, just because Pittsburgh's very segregated. There's this scene and there's that scene, and they're all in their own little like niches of the city. And you know, we have musicians as well as painters and comedians and fire breathers talking to each other. And I mean, I think when you have a situation like that, people are going to work together and create new things they wouldn't have before. So I think it's kind of been a blessing in some ways.
Yeah, it definitely sucks. But like at the same time, there's so many, you can sit there and go, oh, it sucks. 2020 is horrible. Or you can go about trying to find a creative solution for that and try to make an opportunity. And honestly, so many people are trying so many random things right now that even if you try something that like a couple of years from now, you're like, oh, that was really dumb. Like everybody's doing that right now.
Yeah, that's what creativity is. You have to have a problem to solve. And I think it's given people a lot of problems to try to solve.
I think that I agree 110% with the outlook that both of you have on all this. When it comes to social media, I fully believe that we create our own hells. And like, it's only as bad as you want it to be. You have full control over who you're friends with on there, who you're not friends with on there, what you post, how you decide to interact with it. And if you put out negativity, you're going to get it.
Right.
1000%.
Yeah.
But if you work towards positive things and just do creative things and your brains just go and just do stuff. And I feel like if people are digging it, they're going to dig it. And if they don't, that's okay.
Yeah.
At least for me, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I
Rock and roll.
You off. I was just going to say, I really like what you said about like putting positivity out there. Cause I feel like that's one of our like big platforms with what we try to do. And just what I try to do in general is like, complaining on Facebook is never going to be original. Like just trying to put something positive out there and create opportunities for yourself and just put something nice for people to see on the internet. It doesn't have to be like fluffy or bullshit or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it can be meaningful, but I'm over complaining about things or, it's this, you're not going to get anywhere,
I feel like, you can complain to a certain degree and you'll get a bunch of other complainers on your side. And
Great.
you can all complain together.
Yeah.
Or, you can put that positivity out there and you can find people that are worth being around. I'd be so much happier in a small group of cool people than in a large group of terrible people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I mean is funny. Like most of our songs are sad songs, but like sad songs make me happy. Like I want to be positive about these murder ballads,
Yeah. So like how, over the course of time have you reckoned with, this like, I may look dark and unapproachable, but I am actually a very nice, caring human being.
I think that it's actually the most striking thing that I can do is to be aggressively polite. Even when I was a teenager and I'm a little baby bat going around looking like a dumb mall goth. If I go up to someone and they're expecting me to like, I don't know, just throw up on them or something. and instead I'm super, super polite and thank you, ma'am, then that freaks people out more. It's more striking to do that than anything else. And I sort of learned that at a young age. And honestly, most of the time, like especially much older people, like I dress like an old Italian widow. So they, old ladies, little old ladies will come up and ask me about my eyeshadow or what hairspray I use, or they'll come up and look at my rosaries or whatever. Like they usually get it. I volunteered I used to COVID, but I go to a retirement home all the time and the nuns there love me because I don't look that much different,
Sure.
That's it. Yeah.
With everything, that has been going on post COVID, you mentioned that, this video that you put out, Curses, you said that was a single from an upcoming album.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to chat about this album at all? Is there anything you could tell us about this? You still working on it, or are you like sitting on it and waiting for a strategic release?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I think we've decided we're gonna make some important changes with it, but it's called Call of the Void. I think it's gonna have 9
something like that. Yeah.
We're probably gonna put out a couple more singles first. We're being a little bit precious with it, but you only get to do your first LP once.
Mm-hmm.
So
Totally.
But I'm really proud of all of the songs. We have at least 16 songs that we could put on the album. And we're not Bob Dylan, but we are cutting out a lot of them just to curate, even though people don't really care about albums anymore. We're a little bit old school in the way that we want it to have like a flow, and we want each song to have a sort of a part in the story and the feel and the vibe of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's been really fun with Destin having such an incredible studio. We spend a lot of time just like jerking around, playing with theremins, making random noises, and and playing with a bunch of things. And it sort of makes me feel like when you read about or watch documentaries about super old, like 70s and 80s classic rock albums where they could just experiment and go crazy. It's sort of like a musician's playground at his house.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been through quite a journey just trying to figure out, like, what is our sound? How do we want to express all this? Because, I mean, between us, we have so many different directions that we could go in. And I think we've kind of bounced around from like one extreme to the other at times just in the process. And then we've kind of taken a step back and been like, no, this really isn't quite who we are. And so I think that's why it's taken so long. We've been working on the record for, I guess, over a year at this point.
I guess so. Yeah.
But yeah, we really want to make sure that it's something that we're proud of, and that it's a cohesive unit where, like, you could listen to any song, any individual song off the record, and it would sound like a single on its own. But the whole record, as a piece, will also be something, you know, worth having.
Cohesive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've gotten really experimental and then sort of reined it in a bit. But right now it's more about like, ooh, which drum machine's going to be the best? You know?
Yeah. Which of the 10 reverb plugins that I have
do I use a lot of reverbs. Yeah. Got to figure out all those reverbs.
Yep.
Now, you know, that's the blessing and the curse, I suppose, of self-producing.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, on my end, we're just finished this album for my project Normal Creatures. We've been working on this for 2 years, and it was very much like, you know, let's change out the drum sounds on the entire record, and, you know, let's re-record all the bass, let's re-record all the vocals. Now the bass sounds kind of weird with those guitars, let's redo the guitars, let's do this. Let's make the bridge halftime here. Okay, now the bass line's you know, just like all that stuff, because too, with the way that we like write music is a little bit different, because like, since we don't have a live drummer, we're not really writing in a rehearsal situation. We're writing more like in a DAW.
Yeah. Same with us.
So I think right now we've gotten the best goddamn demos you've ever heard. And we're really going to crack down, and we'll have everything recorded by the new year. Yeah.
It's really interesting because we kind of have to play the role of both the creator and editor at the same time when we're recording. I would love at some point, you know, for us to work with a producer where we can just go in for like 6 weeks at a time and just put down all kinds of stuff without any care in the world about whether it's going to work, and leave it up to them. I mean, I was just watching a video of Depeche Mode recording Songs of Faith and Devotion, which was just a nightmare of an album for them to record. And Flood, the producer, he had the tough job at the end of it of like figuring out how do we like take the music of a heroin addict and an alcoholic and everybody just going completely off the rails and make it into something. And so we're kind of having to do the role of all of that a little bit. I mean, minus the drug addictions and stuff, but
yeah, it's mostly like, I think we've more clearly defined like our roles in the band too, that like I end up being more of the like songwriter, band leader sort of thing, and he ends up being like the producer that does all of the stuff that makes this side of it work, you know?
Yeah. And so I've found with myself, because I know that I'm going to have to mix it later, it can force me to be a little bit more conservative than I would like in what I'm actually putting down. And I've tried to really separate those two processes where I don't so much worry about what I'm going to do with it later. If I want to record, 16 tracks of guitars or something, I'll try it, and then I'll wait like a week and come back to it and then figure out if it's something that's usable. But I'm trying not to limit myself from just going for it and taking risks. But it's hard.
Yeah, there's so many different things with me in recording now. I try to basically like mix as we're going and just keep certain things in mind. If I'm using a certain synth or a certain guitar tone or something, like, I know what this is going to sound like in the mix. So like, let's compensate and do this now because I know what's going to happen later.
Right.
But you can't, that's not always 100% accurate.
Not always
it's
possible.
More like 40% accurate, but it's still like trying to plan ahead. And also taking those breaks away from mixes is probably the most important
That's
thing
key
to do.
Yeah.
It's really
helped
hard.
us out a lot.
you just got to like not open that fucking thing up for a couple days and then go back to it. And like, oh
Yeah. And it's usually better than you remember it being. Like if I get too burned out, I don't even want to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's like in visual art, something that artists do. It's like, say I'm working on a portrait or something and I'm working on it forever. Your eyes get so used to what's going on that you can no longer see any of the mistakes that you've made. So to see those, you can put the photo in a mirror, like put your drawing in a mirror, and then somehow it resets your brain and you're like, oh God, that looks horrible. And that helps. I wish there were a way to do, I guess the only way is taking time away.
Actually, what I do sometimes is I turn up the volume on my monitors and I walk outside of my house and I walk down the street and I just listen to the music blasting out of my house. And I try to like distance myself from it completely and just imagine I'm a, completely random person who's never heard this before. What are my immediate thoughts?
That person's listening to music really loud.
Oh, my neighbors hate me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, whenever you were starting the project, Bonnie, was drum machine always a thought, or did that just kind of happen after an afterthought?
No, I really wanted that. My first inkling for this project was listening to the Depeche Mode album Exciter, which is missing one of the members, and a lot of people don't like that album because they said, oh, it doesn't sound full enough or whatever. But I really enjoy the space in it. And the first track on that album has this like rad, really raw acoustic guitar part in it that's like very gritty. And I thought to myself, why isn't there just a band of this? And then I would be listening to, Americana music or really old country music and been like, man, a drum machine and like some cool droney synths would sound awesome in here. And I just developed that idea over time. We have been incorporating more actual drum kits, but processing them, like running a drum kit through a ton of reverb or some like modulation, some different things like that. But Destin has sort of like dragged me kicking and screaming to that place. And I love it now. But I, from the very beginning, really wanted to do something different with the percussion with it. So it wouldn't just sound like a rock band. And it could be because my last band, I had like 8 drummers. So maybe I'm just done with drummers. I don't,
Yeah, we've been kind of doing an interesting technique where we start with electronic drums as the core of the sound. And then I started out as a drummer. So I always kind of crave hearing that air moving in the room a little bit. And so I've been overdubbing like this big 28-inch marching kick and like, brushes on a snare and just like acoustic textures that aren't so much rhythmic, but they just kind of give some air and space that sort of form a halo around the electronics. And I think it's kind of something cool that we've landed on.
No, I think that's a good way to blend it because in my experience, I'm in the same boat. While I'm not doing the same style of music that you're doing at all, there's a lot of similar techniques where I'm blending a lot of like electronic drums with acoustic drums and electronic instruments with organic string instruments, and like getting all of those things to mix together can actually be pretty challenging in a mix because you're really,
definitely.
it's oil and water or whatever, ranch dressing and ice cream. These things like should not go together. Yeah. But you can find some way to make it, taste good.
Yeah. I think we found the key is leaving space.
Yeah. And finding the right reverb.
That's huge. I've been through like several different eras of reverb on our record, and really I'm just using all of the above. Yeah, less is always more in a mix. That's another thing for me. Whenever I'm having an issue with a mix, I always try to ask myself like, it's not so much what does this need, but like what needs to go away?
What doesn't this need?
What there's probably too much going on.
Kill your darlings.
That's the other thing too. I think, the the endless track DAW scenario where you could just keep on adding stuff. Oh, just one more thing, one more layer of this, one more layer of that. There's only so much space in the stereo field, bro.
Yeah. What we've been trying to do is like set aside all of the sounds and textures that we want to use on the record. And like I've just been spending the last 2 weeks setting all that up, building sample libraries, building kits and stuff so that like when we get back to working on the record in a couple weeks.
This is our box.
Yeah, we know exactly what our box is. We know what tools are in that toolbox. So we don't have to spend hours searching around for them. And then, you know, at the end of that time, we've added like 5 other things just because it's like, oh, this sounds cool. What if we added this? Oh, wait, what about that? This also sounds cool.
Yeah, and it ends up being like that coffee scene in Moscow on the Hudson. You know, just you're overwhelmed with too many choices of things. And there are people out there making beautiful music with nothing more than a delay pedal in their voice, you know, and we're trying to figure out which of these 12 reverbs, you know.
Yeah, but I think we're finally getting there. I think that's what the whole process has been about so far, is like ruling things in and out. And now I feel pretty confident that we kind of have everything we need. And then we're both taking some time off of work to just like finish it. Just go in, do marathon sessions, get totally focused and just do it.
That's awesome. I really look forward to hearing it. I
Me
really
too.
do.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
I don't want to like, you know, get depressing and start talking about live shows because it is, you know, 2020 and it's not really a thing.
Right.
But I am curious about the live show experience that you have had given your setup, and maybe discussing some of the hurdles, you know, of being in a band that doesn't have a drummer and trying to do this thing with organic instruments and translating it to a live environment. How's it been?
Well, I mean, he could tell you more the technical side of that, but I mean, the whole point with our music is to have this dichotomy between analog and digital. So getting those to work together in a live setting isn't always perfect, but there are some things about it that have made it way easier. The fact that we don't have to carry a huge drum set in, the fact that we don't have to be really loud because we're compensating for an acoustic drum kit. So it's usually a lot easier to get a really nice mix in a room because everything doesn't have to be up here. You can hear more space. You can, you know, and also with our music, like I said, I'm all about the songwriting. I'm all about the stories and those basic melodies. So at its core, like I've played shows for mere mortals that were just me. I was at a festival once and there was this ensemble of like, there's like a banjo player, a fiddle player, and something else. And they had just played a set. And I was like, hey guys, I have some chords. You want to just jump in on this? And ended up playing a set that way. I've played sets by myself. I've played tons of sets, just me and Destin. Before we had our 2 newest members, our now keyboardist was playing upright bass, and we did a lot of stuff as like a jazz trio. So I think the thing that's nice about our music or about our songs is that they can translate into a bunch of different ways. And I think the people who, you know, have become fans of us enjoy that every time they see us, we're sort of curating what that show is going to be based upon the space. So, you know, if we're playing at Gooski's, it's going to be a different thing than we're playing Deutschtown Festival is going to be a different thing than if we're playing on the street or, you know, in a quiet bar or.
Yeah. Our music's definitely scalable to the setting. When we first started playing live, we were basically trying to recreate what we did on the EP. So we had tracks and in-ears and, you know, anything that wasn't on stage was in the tracks. And it was just always frustrating being locked into the same arrangement every time.
You feel like you're karaokeing to yourself. It's rough.
Yeah. So we've just been kind of allowing ourselves to play it a little different every single show. And so sometimes we take on a little bit more of like a folk ensemble or a jazz ensemble feel. Sometimes it's much more electronic. It kind of depends where we are. And I think we sort of feed off the energy of the venue and the audience. And that kind of defines what the show is going to be.
Yeah, we've had ones where we're much more almost like a rock band. And then we just did a live stream show that from, not the one we just did, but for As the Crow Flies Fest, where Destin was playing synth parts and guitar at the same time. And then the one that we just did was just 3 of us. And instead of having our percussionist there, we had just a drum machine playing pre-made, you know, like Casio beats and
Yeah.
and just like went in with that. And it was awesome. I really loved that arrangement of it, you know?
I think that's really, really cool and very, very smart to be able and willing to kind of like drop the, not necessarily the ego of the project, but like the, whatever you think the project is supposed to be, you know, from that like EP, however it was. And it's like, fuck it. You know, we can make compromises and we can shift and adjust to allow ourselves to be a part of each sort of setting that we're in, because it's like your entertainment, right? You know, you're the, I don't want to say the hired guns, because how much money are we making right now? But you get what I mean. And like your job is to entertain the crowd. So if you find yourself in an environment that maybe is more suited to like a jazz trio room or a rock room, you can kind of turn things down or up accordingly and just fuck it. They're still the same songs.
Well, also more than that, if you play the same song 100 times, you're going to get bored of it. And we found ways to like really keep it super exciting. Oh, we're going to do it this way this time. Especially like Tennessee off of our Tennessee EP. You know, there was a while where we were just so sick of practicing that song. And then we play it in a bunch of different ways. It makes it fresh. It's a whole new thing. We really enjoy it. And I also really take to heart, I think I saw an interview with Dave Grohl once where he was saying like the mark of a good song is that you could take it to any genre and it sounds good. So I sort of really try to do that with my songwriting, that like you could take this song, you take these basic chords and you can throw it, you can make it as loud or as quiet or with any instruments you want. And if it's still a good song, then it's a good song, you know?
Totally.
So that to me is just like, I want to stretch my songs and see what all are they capable of, you know?
With the, you know, material, obviously, you're doing this all yourselves, so there's a whole lot you got to take care of. Are you planning on any other videos, any other extracurricular activities around this album?
Yeah, we'd like to do at least one more video. And we're trying to come up with some more stuff to just keep things interesting.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about after this record, we'd love to do a project where we like send our music to a bunch of people to remix.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then we'd also love to do like a sort of live in studio album or maybe just performance or something where we could invite a lot of musicians who we might not ordinarily play with. Like,
just like some great pickers, some trumpet players, some weird stuff, and have them
anybody
sit in
we
on
know
like a studio session.
See how they interpret the song.
Fun. Yeah. So, and then like he said, like to take the songs we already have and just, you know, send the album to a bunch of great DJs or electronic musicians and say like, hey, have fun with this, pick a song, do something cool, you know?
Yeah, that'd be like, those two avenues would be really interesting, because on one flip, you could really like highlight the electronic elements of the project and have somebody like push that to 10. Or you can like, you know, get a bunch of banjo and fiddle players and stuff and like push it in the other direction.
Yeah.
And just like see how it goes.
Yeah, I'd love to do both of those and then sell them as one thing.
Yeah.
And see, you know, and just have it be wild. I think too, we were talking earlier about like, you know, goth folks not wanting to be seen as like pop or like you have an idea of like this is goth. And if you're not this, like, fuck you, you're not goth. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can say whatever you want.
But you know, the original people who don't want to be called goth, the thing that made them interesting was that they were all experimental. They're all trying different things. They were being silly and playing with tambourines and, you know, hanging out with kitty cats.
Yeah.
You know, just doing it's not all just like low Ian Curtis vocals and just the same droning goth rock stuff. They would break from that and just do stuff that was fun for them to do. So
it's interesting how like, you know, that particular culture has like romanticized and idolized like all of the like the specific darkness of it, you know?
Yeah.
It's a little, I mean, I guess I've been there, you know, I remember what I looked like when I was 15 for sure. But I don't know why there's just sometimes people that, you know, they have a hard time getting the humor in things.
Right.
But it's been pretty cool because like I started up a new kind of like it's like a dark wave synth pop project with a friend of mine.
I want to hear about that later.
Yeah, and we started releasing stuff a couple months ago, and we're like kind of goofballs. And I was like kind of concerned because like the music's not goofy, but ourselves, like we're just dorks, you know what I mean? And like, but everybody's actually been surprisingly pretty cool to us. And like people have been like really welcoming of us in the community, a lot more welcoming than the heavy metal community has been to me in a lot of ways, and how the hip hop community has been to me in other ways. You know, it's nice. It's refreshing. Nothing against any of those communities. I've just met less rude people, but it's only been a couple months, so we'll see how it
They'll
goes.
come around.
That's really
cool,
yeah. They'll come around.
You know, outside of Bonnie and the Mere Mortals, there's, you know, Destin, you mentioned that you're playing in other bands and you have your other things that you're doing. Bonnie, are you at your like limit right now with music creativity, or is there anything else beyond this that you might want to do one day?
I mean, I this music wise, like I would love to have a doom band just for funsies.
Okay.
But I am I funnel all my extra energy that I'm not spending doing drawings for people, doing tattoos into this. You know? This is my thing.
Cool. Yeah, I think that it's good to have that focus, and wearing too many hats ends up looking silly. And I am definitely like so fucking guilty of just doing way too much.
I guess we have the Pittsburgh Creative Collective, and then you know, tattooing in and of itself is just is like it's my own business, you know. So that's 3 hats. I have a lot of hats.
With the Pittsburgh Creative Collective, can you tell me just a little bit more about like specifically what that is? Because you've mentioned it a few times and I have like a vague idea, but specifically what it is, and like specifically where people can find more about that.
Sure. You can go to pittsburghcreativecollective.com.
Website.
Yep. We put this together as a way for creatives of all types in Pittsburgh to come together to be able to collaborate. Also during quarantine, while people didn't have jobs, to just make a database, and now to create a database of Pittsburgh creators to either collaborate, or if someone has excess income and they would like to support people, there's a list of people who need support and how you can support them. And then we've also created a variety show, which Destin just upped our game massively for our last episode. But basically it's, I don't know, it's like Mystery Science Theater 3000 a little bit. It's a little bit Wayne's World, and it's a little bit like just like a visual podcast. We all sit together and talk and watch videos from specifically Pittsburgh creators that have made a video for us to show in their homes, quarantined properly. And we have some commentary on it and have some guests, and Destin just did a bunch of stuff to make it.
Yeah, it started out, we were just doing Zoom calls because, you know, I think we did this maybe the second week of the lockdown or something. We were just like, you know, what can we do? We know so many people who are just going stir crazy, and we were too. So we started a website, and then we were at first going to have a show at my house, but then we realized, you know,
lockdown happened.
Yeah, so we started doing Zoom calls, which, you know, it's Zoom. We've all seen enough of that. And, but we would have just everybody shoot videos in their bedroom. And, it was, you know, we got a lot of submissions, and little by little, we've just started growing it to where now we have kind of almost like a talk show format, in my living room. And then we have in my studio, we're doing, live performances, and eventually, you know, we're going to have whole bands and do like virtual concerts and stuff.
Super fun. Hell yeah. PittsburghCreativeCollective.com.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
Good for you.
We're hoping so. You know, if nothing else, we've like Destin said, we've made friends with some awesome comedians and fire breathers, and lots of great hip hop artists. Just a ton of great musicians, visual artists, you know, people we'd never talked to before. And some of those people I'd like to collaborate with in the future, you know, because of this.
Like a lot of those folks, they're online only, you know, they're not going to shows. They're not going to like art exhibitions and stuff. And so I find that the online art communities are not always very geographic. You don't really know what's happening in Pittsburgh because when you put your stuff out online, it's you're competing with the world.
Right.
And so we've always seen the need for like an online community that's central to Pittsburgh. And so I think that's what we're starting to see is like people are coming out of the woodwork. And we would have never met a lot of these people if it hadn't been for this.
Yeah, and a lot of people have started collaborating with each other too.
Yeah.
You know, bands talking to these visual artists about creating art, or the comedian that we had a good connection with a fire breather that we had, you know. So it's been interesting. If nothing else, like I'm getting something creatively and spiritually out of it. I haven't made any money, but you know, we do donations for charity anyways. So
Yeah.
it's not our goal.
No, I think it's awesome to find a way to remain connected with the community in the midst of everything that's going on right now, because I think that that's always been the most valuable thing to me about playing shows is actually making friends, building connections, and just like being around other cool people. I feel like the whole reason I even started doing music and playing shows was because I wanted to meet other people that were as weird as me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there's just something like refreshing about seeing other people who are, you know, struggling the same way you're struggling. I mean, a lot of people are dealing with the same shit. And like the past episode we sort of themed it around mental health. And so at the start of the episode, we just kind of did a health check, like, you know, how are you doing? And specifically as a creative person, how are you doing? And I think that's something that just happened implicitly at shows for years. You felt part of a community, and like all of a sudden when that's taken away, you notice it's missing, and you never really realized that was there, that's actually a big part of just keeping ourselves healthy.
How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. Yeah. I mean, I'm in a convenient space where I have this podcast, which is, you know, not too dissimilar from what the two of you are doing. And it's all about meeting people, connecting the dots. And for a long time, I used to say this was like weekly therapy sessions for me, because I think as an artist, it's really easy to get in your own head and feel like your problems are incredibly unique. But you talk to a couple hundred other people in the city that are all doing the same thing as you and going through the same things. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, this is just about being human. I'm not some troubled artist. I'm just a person trying to get through life.
Yeah, exactly.
And nobody's that particularly unique. I don't mean that in a way to like be like negative towards anybody. It's kind of like a positive for me. It's like, okay, this is just part of being alive. You have to learn to understand and deal with these problems from day to day and find ways to battle those things. You know, like you said, you know, being creative or is about like solving a problem, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like solving the problem of life.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's music.
You know, and I feel like in most ways, everybody's kind of a lot more creative than they give themselves credit for all the time.
I
Like
think
even
yeah.
people that
people are
aren't creatives, like everybody's.
I think those people are too judgmental on themselves, because no one, I mean, some people do start out more naturally gifted at something, but when you start out doing something, you're not good, but you like doing it, and you're not judging yourself to the point where you stop doing it, and then you get good at something. But how many times do you hear someone say, oh, I could never draw, or oh, I could never play an instrument. I could draw a really good stick figure. I'm not musical, whatever. And it's like,
Not with that attitude.
yeah, it's like neither are babies, but like eventually you start working on something and doing that. And I think as an artist, as a musician, we're all just you have to be willing to make a fool of yourself a little bit. You have to participate. You have to participate in the joke, you know, that is performing, that is getting up there and doing that.
I have found that like it seems really simple, but it's actually like I think it's kind of hard for a lot of people to do that, though, to be able to accept any sort of a defeat or accept any sort of a failure. It's kind of like similar to, for a long time, I always used to ask myself, like, why are people assholes? It's actually so much work to be an asshole. It's just easier to be nice. But actually, nowadays, I think it's a lot easier to be an asshole, because being nice requires like empathy and understanding of other people and being willing to tell yourself that, oh, maybe I'm wrong and this person's right. And that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
So I kind of start to understand why some people can just be like incredibly rude. It's just like because they can't handle the idea of being wrong.
I mean, plenty
Yeah.
of them are musicians too.
Oh
though.
yeah. You've noticed?
So
Yeah, well, I think there's a mindset where you think that if you fail at something once, it means you're a failure forever, and that just defines who you are. And I think anyone who's successful at something has just gotten really good at failing,
Oh,
and they've
sure.
figured out every way that they can possibly fail at something, and now they've just narrowed down the few ways that they can actually succeed at something. And so,
right.
like I'm a music teacher by day, and that's something I always try to tell my students is like, in order to get good, you have to fail, and you have to be comfortable with failure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's like, if you like back into a curb, do you stop driving? If you scuff your shoes, do you stop wearing shoes? Do you know? I don't know. Those are dumb examples, but I think like it's, but when those things happen, it's like, big deal. It's a little thing, but sometimes a personal failure feels like so much more than just like a scuffed shoe or a bumped curb. It feels like you've like amputated yourself in some way.
Yeah. Well, and it's not something that society has really set us up to know how to deal with. I mean, just the nature of most education is such that you're kind of taught that if you do something this way, this is the right way and you'll succeed. If you do it any other way, you're wrong and you won't succeed.
Yeah.
And so I think it's something that that many people have not really experienced before. There's not a blueprint for how to be successful at being creative.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
agree.
certainly true.
So, with all of that being said, as this train comes back around to the station, we have had our talk. We could probably talk a lot more. I'm sure once I hit stop, we're probably going to talk for quite a bit, but it's been about an hour, and we care about our friends and family, and I think that they've all listened to us plenty well long enough for the day. I wish all of our friends and family out there today a happy and healthy day. Take care of yourselves and the people around you. But before we go, say your piece and let people know where they can find you on the internet.
Oh, sure. So again, if you've made it here, you know that we're Bonnie and the Mere Mortals. And you can find us on the Facebooks and also the Instagrams at Bonnie and the Mere Mortals. Please follow us on Spotify, and please check out our new music video for Curses. And I think those are the main things that we do.
Super, super cool. I appreciate you both for coming on. I had a great time. Nice to meet you both officially. And with all that being said, I'm going to do my outro. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. And that is all, folks. Thanks so much for being here. One more time. Bonnie, Destin, Bonnie, and the Mere Mortals. That's yay. I'll be back again in a couple days with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Sykes. Start the beat 2020. Woo woo. Thanks for listening. And we're done. That's a podcast.
Yay!
Fade that out.
Nice.
And we did it.